Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Kay Cote, and I'm your podcast host here on the show today. Today we have Chase Kocher, founder of Aim for Hire, as my guest. We're going to be learning all about his business, his journey to business ownership, best practices, and some challenges he may have faced along the way to give you that inside scoop to what it's like to own and operate a business. If this is your first time on our channel, be sure to like and subscribe when we get episodes like this. Welcome, Chase. It is so great to meet you. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you, Cave. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk business.
Of course. Well, let's dive right in. Tell me a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Aim for Hire.
Absolutely. So I was born and raised here in Austin, Texas. Definitely a city that's gone from kind of a small town to big tech startup land. It seems like everybody, including yourself, like a lot have moved here over the course of the last 5 or 10 years. And so it's been a cool city to be a part of and kind of just see the transformation of different cultures, different backgrounds, different states, even different countries of people coming here and kind of, I don't know, it's kind of what makes Austin unique and special in a lot of ways. But yeah, born and raised here, played basketball competitively the majority of my life, not anymore, unfortunately. But coming out of college, kind of had that point where I had to decide, to hang up basketball and figure out what I was going to do next. So naturally, with Austin and the tech community, kind of fell into that world. And getting into the recruiting, hiring side, I started with kind of big companies, like big staffing organizations. Did that for a year, didn't love it, to be honest. Really kind of wanted to find more of a plug into like the startup world and startup community. So got the opportunity to launch an office for another recruiting company and then start Aim for Hire, I guess 5 years ago now. So crazy how fast the time has flown.
Yes, of course. I'm just taking a few notes as we talk. Uh,
Hmm.
that is incredible. I'd love to hear kind of like your journey, how you went from one thing to the next. And I want to dive into your why, why recruiting? What really drew you into that?
Yeah, I'll be honest. So I guess being an athlete, like I didn't get recruited a lot by colleges, but I certainly had friends, and my brother, who's my co-founder, also got recruited to play Division I basketball. So I guess I kind of had that exposure and how cool it was to like feel recruited by somebody. So I think that was kind of my first inkling towards that. But really kind of fell into it as a way of like, I get to meet companies, I get to work with the people that are controlling hiring for these companies, and eventually I'll just go work for one of those companies and kind of just build a network of people. But truthfully, like, it's kind of 3 or 4 years past in that industry and kind of just saw an opportunity to start my own company and be very like Austin local centric, working with tech startups that are kind of just like disruptive by nature. Like they're kind of the underdog, and I identified with that, and I kind of wanted to be a part of that and kind of help them find talent, how to decide like when to hire the right people, how can they get people that Google, Facebook, Amazon are also throwing a lot of money at. I just kind of resonated with a lot of that, as did my brother and my team. So we kind of just built a company like around those principles.
Oh my goodness, I love that. That's such a cool story because you really brought full circle what you experienced in, with basketball and like that world and brought it into something completely fresh. But those skills and that kind of knowing that world really was able to open those doors. So I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
Looking at your company now, do you have any employees and like what does your team look like and what do you see your team doing in the next year?
Yes. So yeah, year over year, we've kind of added a couple people since the beginning, really, which was right before COVID, which is a whole story in itself of starting a business right before pandemic and everything else that happened. I think we're up to, I think we're right at 12 employees. So give or take, kind of in that 10 to 20 range. And really, we've kind of grown and then other times decided to kind of get leaner and in the services space, you kind of sometimes you don't have a choice. Like sometimes you really have to go with the market, and when the market's hot, you may have the opportunity to hire a bigger team. But in tighter times, like you really try to make the most of those opportunities. So I'd say like overall, we've kept it pretty close knit, smaller team, which has been to our advantage, I think, because like tech is always changing. Tech is, as we know, with AI and other things that keep popping into that world and revolutionizing kind of how we do things. So being smaller has kind of helped us pivot quicker to like, this is a new skill set we need to learn how to recruit, or this is a new talent pool we need to develop, or this is a new kind of company we're representing that, is in the energy space or the grid tech space. So like, let's get the team together and like do a crash course on how to understand that world and how to best like recruit for those types of companies. So it's been really rewarding, but as a small group, like we all wear different hats. So I'd say over the course of the next year, it's a lot of kind of trying to figure out exactly what companies are going to be hiring, what areas are going to be growing,
Mhm.
how can we kind of position ourselves to best like provide talent for those companies.
Oh, definitely. Well, it sounds like you have a great, well-oiled machine and you're in a lean team, which is great for, serving in the way you do. Looking at your team, do you see any emerging leaders within your team?
No doubt. Sometimes, it's kind of one of the problems of being smaller is that there aren't all these management levels in our company. Like it's a very flat organization. But I think the titles don't do it justice for our team members. Like a lot of our recruiters are not just recruiting, like they're sourcing talent, they're managing our accounts, they're interfacing with customers on a daily basis, they're interfacing with recruits, they're kind of building their own networks of talent pools. So I think across the board, our team is just been kind of like you said, they've been elite. Like they've really stepped up to the plate. Last year was a tougher year for the tech community, like tech startup hiring, and obviously there are a lot of layoffs and funding issues. So like our teams really come together kind of around kind of taking those punches and finding out kind of how we can get through that time and also like even thrive sometimes. So it's been a cool group to be a part of, but we definitely spend a lot of time with each other. So I guess we probably get a little annoyed with each other at times, but for the most part, everyone's looking to step up and kind of lead and be more involved, which has been awesome.
Oh, that is incredible. And kind of looking at your day to day, as the founder, are you working more in the business, on the business, or is your time split? What does your day to day look like?
Yeah, I think it changes by the day.
Yeah.
I'd say still as a team of like 10 or so, you kind of you want to step back and like empower your employees to do their thing and be successful. But also when you're one of 10, it's kind of like any little thing I can also help with is just going to contribute to the end goal. And so I think it's 5 years ago, I was super involved and kind of thought like, okay, 5 years down the road, I'll be a little hands off. I'll kind of just be a manager. And in some ways, that's come to fruition, and in other days, it hasn't. And that's completely cool. But I just like being involved, and I kind of like the freedom I have now to just jump in wherever I can to help. And in the hiring, recruiting, talent, client world, like there's always some new company that's hiring or like a new person that's looking for a new job. So I think I've kind of been fueled by the fact that there's always something to do, and I'm fortunate but at times run out of energy. So but I'd say overall, yes, it is still wearing any and all hats I can to kind of help the team and the company.
Oh, definitely. And kind of like looking at the last 5 years of business, what is something that maybe has challenged you along the way that you were able to overcome, and how did you do it?
Mm. Challenges, I would say, I mean, really the first 4 years of the business, I'll be honest, like the tech world was on fire and like tech startups, tech mid-sized companies, they were all hiring. So the game was a lot more, how can I help startups compete for that talent that has like 5 job offers already? Um, and then kind of really end of 2022, most of 2023, or sorry, 2020 into 2023, most of 2024. there was less funding for tech startups. There was a lot of layoffs. There's a lot of companies that are trying to shift to being profitable and not just like burning cash to grow. That was that was by far the greatest challenge like in my career in recruiting that I've faced is like there really are a limited number of companies that actually are hiring, and it's not at the volume that we're accustomed to. So it became a lot more of a precision game of like, we're going to hire two people this year, but they need to be absolute rock stars and check all the boxes and then some. So I think myself and the team kind of got together last year, realizing that we're not going to have 100 jobs to recruit on. It's probably going to be like 20, but all 20 need to be like the absolute best recruitment work we've done. So it was a lot of kind of evaluating like, what we've done, what we haven't done, don't leave any stone unturned, kind of just being almost relentless in trying to identify the right people. And then, ultimately it's worked out in our favor. And I think like we learned a lot of things that if the market starts to pick back up, like those skills and those relationships we built are going to pay off. But it was a tough time when you're recruiting in a landscape where there's a lot of people trying to find, it's easier to find recruits. It's harder to find companies that were hiring. So I think that was the biggest challenge we faced certainly in the last 5 years. So we found companies, we found opportunities, and then just made the most of those opportunities, really.
Definitely, I could see that. I was like kind of following those trends too, and I could see that being a factor. Well, thank you for sharing that. And, kind of brings me into my next question, which is what do you see coming up for the next 3 to 5 years? Like, what are
Yeah.
some growth things you'd like to see in your company? Things like that.
Yeah, I think continuing to like not losing the fire, like as far as what I want from our team and our companies is to not lose that desire to like every time we get a new company to work with or every time like we get to meet with a candidate that seems awesome and has great skills, like not losing that extra mile mentality of like I'm going to go above and beyond for this company or this person. Like I think as a services company, really any service like real estate, insurance, whatever it is, every time you bring on a new customer, you have to like it's as if they don't know you, they don't know your brand. So you really have to be like the very best for every single new client you bring on. Whereas if you have a software platform, like the software is going to work for the new customer just like it did for the last new customer usually. But when it comes to people, I think it's just so hard to not like get complacent or just settle for being like good. As a small agency, like we're very big on boutique, high quality, high touch experiences, and to do that you really just have to bring it every single day. So I think that's what I'm hoping for from our team is to continue to motivate them and empower them to do that. And then from a tech perspective, I mean, I think it's almost unquestionable that AI and AI bots and agents like are going to be doing certain things that we're accustomed to humans doing. So, I think that can change a lot of different things. Do companies need to hire as many engineers as they did before? Or are they going to use AI to kind of replace some of those things? Are they going to use AI to fulfill tech support and they don't need to hire tech support people anymore? I think there's still a lot of question marks. But I think that part's a little scary to probably everybody. But also, I think having faith in the fact that there's going to be other opportunities that are created out of AI and being more efficient and starting to kind of anticipate like what are those skill sets that are going to be important and that companies are going to want, and how can we find those people, how can we maybe advise certain people to get into those skill sets or those areas. So I think a lot of this year is just going to be kind of a trial and error and seeing what companies are tending to do and what's working and what isn't.
Oh, definitely. I'm glad that you brought up AI because I was going to ask how AI has been kind of impacting or has it impacted your business and how you're making the most out of AI. So I think you answered that really well because it can be like, what is this new thing we have available to us and how do we best utilize it in the best way possible? So I see you definitely going that route.
It is, yeah. Whenever there's a new technology, it's like so easy, especially as a business owner, to like see a new way of thinking or like see your competitors are using a tool. and thinking like, I don't want to use that. Like I'm scared of like having to change things around that new tool or new software. But then the flip side is like if you don't adapt to the world that's constantly changing, like you are going to get left behind. So I think it's kind of a tough pill to swallow sometimes as far as analyzing the market and analyzing your competition and kind of realizing that you're going to have to do certain things, but also like you want to stick to your core principles. So for us being boutique, like a lot of it is very people first, human first interactions. So I don't necessarily want chatbots to replace my recruiters, but leveraging AI in a way that can help us is like going to be at the forefront, as I'm sure it is for every company. Whatever they do for their customers, I'm sure they're going to be thinking about how technology can make it easier.
Oh, definitely. I think this is such a great topic. That's a whole new we could do a whole podcast on
Yeah.
technology. But this has been such a fun conversation so far. I'd like to dive into a fun part of the Q&A, which is our
Whoa.
rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
So these four questions you answer very top of mind, first thing that comes to mind, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Uh, all
That's the
right.
only way I know how, so that works for me.
All right. Question number one is, what is the key to success for you?
Focus,
Yes. Love
attention
that.
to detail, attention to detail.
Question number two is, what is a piece of advice you have for other business owners?
Mm. I think interlapping passion with whatever the business is. So like recruiting, I love recruiting. I think it's cool. There are also other things I like, but just kind of finding ways to like almost um, in basketball is like becoming a student of the game, like watching film and watching NBA games and kind of almost obsessing over it. In a lot of ways, I think that's been, working with tech. Like I'm not a software engineer and I'm certainly not super technical. Like I struggle to change the background on my phone sometimes. So it's certainly, I'm not an expert there. But getting to know the tech community and kind of like learning how to speak their lingo and understand what kind of challenges they're facing, like that's just been a huge difference maker for my company. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of just reaching out to people that know things that you don't and kind of try to find a way to show the appreciation and interest, I guess, in learning how they do things and how maybe it can make you better as a company leader.
Oh, that is so great. And number three is, what is a book or it could be a piece of content, a podcast, anything that you've taken in most recently?
Most recently, I do listen to Joe Rogan podcast here and there. I'm a big music guy, so I listen to a lot of country and Texas country, especially. Fanatical Prospecting, I've read it like 20 times. But I do like, I'm not fanatical per se, but I am very persistent and I'm very driven and mission oriented. So just the reminders of like constantly prospecting for new clients, new candidates, it interlines well with our company. So I'm always reading that kind of stuff so that I can steal quotes and go to my team and make it sound like I'm the originator of knowledge.
I dig it. I dig that a lot. And the final question in our rapid fire is, if you could like wave a magic wand and overnight rapidly improve one aspect of your business, what would it be?
Oh, I would say meetings, like optimizing our meetings. We did end of year last year. We met with the team a lot. So I think this year, really optimizing time spent, having an agenda and sticking to it. I hope I'm not the only one that has issues with that. But I hate just meeting for the sake of meeting. So I think we're going to work on that this year, as far as just making them more efficient and effective.
Oh, definitely. I can agree with that too. Well, that was a really fun rapid fire. Before we get to the final question for today, how can people find you and your business?
We live on LinkedIn, so I usually advise that or the website, aim for hire, is how you spell it, with the number four. So yeah, LinkedIn website. Hopefully you're already connected to one of our recruiters, but if not, we can make that happen. But I think those would be my suggestions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Chase. This has been a great conversation. For our final question today, what is most inspiring to you today?
What is the most inspiring thing today?
Yeah.
Hmm. It's January. I mean, we got the whole year ahead. I'm ready for the clean slate. It's freezing, snowing in Austin, Texas. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of things that can happen this year. So I think I'm just excited to kind of have that new year start and start to implement some of my goals and some of the things our company has kind of in our mission to achieve this year.
Yes, fresh year, fresh start. Well, Chase, this has been such a joy. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing your journey.
Thanks for having me.